Hi everyone, my name's Gary and I'm from Australia. And welcome to today's BeeHive language English lesson. So let's start with our topic for today. So our topic for today is getting to know somebody. So when you want to get to know somebody, you want to know more information about that person. And this is a good way to have a conversation with somebody. So if you want to get to know somebody better, how do you do that? What do you do? Of course, you should ask questions. So we're going to have a look at today WH questions, because WH questions are the questions that we mostly and very often use when we want to get to know somebody. So I'm just going to write up okay, so I have 6 WH up here for you. Okay, so I'm sure that you already know some of these. So let's have a look. What do you think the first WH is? So when we want to ask about a person, we use who. Okay? Second one, what do you think this one stands for? This one stands for what? Okay, and the next one, what do you think it might be? When. Okay, and how about the next one? Why? How about the next one? If we wanted to know the place, maybe, we might say where. Okay, and our final one down here is which. Okay, but there's one exception to the WH rule that we often use, and it does actually have W and H in the word. So that's why we kind of say it's also WH. And this one is how. So as you can see, this, look, it has a W and an H. It's just not quite in the right order. All right. So let's make sure that we can say these words properly. It should be pretty simple, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this today. So we have who, what, when, why, where, which, and finally, how. Okay, so let's get into how we use each of these WH words, each of these WH question words, to make sure we're using them in the correct way. Okay? So first of all, who. What situation do we use who for? If we're asking a question about a person, right? Okay, so who is used for asking about people or a person. Okay? So, for example, who is she? Very simple example. Right, next let's have a look at what. So in what situations do we use the question word what? So usually when we are asking about things or activities. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples. So look at some examples, okay? So, if I want to ask about an activity, I can say, what did you do on the weekend? Okay, so this is to ask about an activity. If you want to ask about a thing, just give a simple example, okay? We'll say, what is that? Okay? Alright, so Now let's have a look at when. I'm just going to move these down a little bit because I'm running out of room. So we're going to go when. Okay. So what kind of question do we use when to ask? So of course I think you know this. We use when to asking about general or specific time. Okay? So when we want to ask about general or specific time. So let's have a look at the difference between those. Okay? If we want to ask about general time, we'll say for example, when do you like to go out? So I might say, I like to go out on the weekend because I have to work during the week. Okay? If I want to ask about a specific time, I can say, for example, when does the bus leave? Now there are two ways that you can ask about specific time. We can use when, but we can also use what time. Okay? You can also use what time does the bus leave. The meaning is the same. Okay, let's go to our next one. So our next one on our list was why. Okay? So we use why to asking for reasons. Okay? Asking for reasons. Why? So for example, okay, we need a situation to use the question why. Okay? So you might say, for example, if I said, I like blues music. Now, I'm a white man. So blues music is a very unusual interest for somebody like me. So a person might be confused about why I like blues music. So you would ask the question like that. Why do you like blues music? Okay? Alright, let's have a look at our next one, which I want to get into, is where. Okay, where, of course, we use where to ask about so we use where for asking about places. Okay? So for example, if I said, let's have dinner tomorrow night, you might say, where do you want to have dinner? Okay? Alright. So I've run out of room on my board, so I'm going to rub these two off. So I hope that you already have these written down. I'll give you a little bit more time to add these ones in. Okay, so next let's have a look at which. Okay, which. Alright, so why do we use which? When do we use which? Okay, we usually use which when there is a choice. Okay, so asking about choice. Okay, so which shoes are yours? Okay, which shoes are yours? If there's lots of pairs of shoes, I go, which pairs are shoes? Or which book is yours? Okay, and let's now have a look at how. Alright, so how is a little bit more complicated. I want to explain to you why. Because we can use how with another word, okay? And we can change the second word and it has several different meanings, okay? But how, okay, is for asking about characteristics okay? So, asking about characteristics, qualities, quantities, and there are even more, okay? So, let's have a look at some examples, okay? So, for example, we can say, how much? Okay, so this question is asking about price of something or the quantity of something, yeah? So for example, I can say, how much wine did you drink? Okay, this is asking about the quantity, all right? You can also ask about price. Simple question, how much is, how much is it? Okay? Alright, I'm going to rub the rest of these out, so I hope you already have them down. Just going to do that quickly. Okay. So, also, we can ask about the length. So we use how long. Okay? This is a talk about the length of something. Okay? So for example, I can say, how long have you been? Okay? This is a very common expression that we use with how long. Okay? Have you been doing something? So for example, how long have you been playing the guitar? Okay? So if you meet somebody who you think is really good at playing the guitar, you can ask them, how long have you been playing the guitar? Alright, and there are still more. We can also use how often. So how often is to talk about frequency. Okay? So the frequency means how many times do you do it? Okay? So you can say, how often do you eat out? Okay? How often do you eat out? Alright, and the last one we're going to have a look at is how about. So how about is used mostly for making a suggestion. Okay? So I could say, for example, how about we eat out tonight? Okay? So if you're not familiar with eat out, this means to eat outside. Okay? If you want to eat at home, you can say eat in. So you either eat in or eat out. So, how about we eat out tonight? So you're suggesting to go outside to eat. Okay, so let's go over and review all the things that we have been through today. So we have who, first of all. Who is used to talk about what? Talk about people. Okay, who are you? Who am I? Alright, what is used to talk about things or activities. Okay, things or activities. Okay, for example, what did you do on the weekend? Okay, and for things we can say, what is that? Okay, all right. Next one we can talk about where. So where. Of course, we use where to ask about a place, okay? So where should we meet, okay? Where is that? Where is she, okay? Next one we're going to have a look at is when, okay? So when is used to ask about general or specific time. So we say, when do you like going out, to ask about a general time, and when does the bus leave? All right, next one we're going to have a look at is why. So why is to talk about reasons, or ask about reasons. So why did you do that? Why do you like blues music? And the last one we're going to have a look at is which. Okay, which of course is if you have a choice. Which shoes do you like? Which bag is yours? Okay? And of course we have how here. Okay? So this is to ask about lots of things depending on what our second word is. And I've given you 4 examples. So we have how much, how long, how often, and how about. So how much is to ask about the quantity or the price. How long, okay, is asked to talk about the length, okay? It can be a length of time. So for example, how long have you been playing the guitar? How often is to ask about frequency, okay? So how often do you eat out? I usually eat out twice a week. All right, and the last one, how about, is to give a suggestion, okay? So if you're with your group of friends and you're trying to decide which restaurant to eat at, you can say, how about we eat at the seafood restaurant down the street? I've been there before, it's really good. Okay, so I hope that this review has helped you to remember everything you've learned today, and we'll be back in a short while with some dialogue practice. Hi, welcome back to BeeHive Language. So let's review what we learned earlier. So earlier we learned about WH questions. Okay, so we have who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. So let's review when we use those specific words. So we use who to ask questions about a person or people. Okay? We use what to ask about activities or things. We use when to ask about general or specific time. We use where to ask about place. We use why to ask for a reason. And we use which to ask if there's several choices. Okay? And we use how. Well, as I said earlier, you can use how lots of different ways. So you can say how much to ask about price or quantity. You can say how long to ask about length of time or this kind of thing. You can also use how about, okay, and how often. All right, so let's get into our dialogue for today. So I'm just going to go through the dialogue with you, make sure that you guys understand what's going on. All right, so first, as we know, the topic for today is getting to know each other. So we want to imagine that we are meeting somebody for the first time, but you can also use these kind of questions if it's somebody you don't know very well, but you have met them before. All right, but in this case, we're meeting somebody for the first time. So we say, hi, nice to meet you, which is just a common greeting. Says you too, okay? And then you should say your name here. And then he asks, what's your name? Person replies with their name, okay? Says, so this is a good way to lead into a question, okay? We often use it. So say, so what do you do in your spare time? So spare time is the same as your free time. All right, he says, I'm interested in all kinds of different sports, like golf. So A asks, wants to know more about this, okay, to show interest in what the person is saying. He says, how often do you play? He says, not as often as I'd like. What about you? Well, I don't like golf. I like watching rugby. So the idea with this is that you want to try to find something that you both like. Okay? So then he says, me too. How about we watch the game on Saturday? So on Saturday there's a game of rugby, so he asks if he wants to watch it together. He says, sounds good. So this is a form of agreement. Okay, so I'm going to invite my good friend Paul to come in and help me run through the dialogue. Hi, nice to meet you.
You too. I'm Paul. What's your name?
Gary. So what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I'm interested in all kinds of different sports, like golf.
How often do you play?
Not as often as I'd like. What about you?
Well, I don't like golf. I like watching rugby.
Me too. How about we watch the game on Saturday?
Sounds good. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of practice together. Okay, so we're going to go through the usual process here. So first I'm going to say A, and you should reply to me by saying the lines for B. Okay, so let's start with the dialogue. Hi, nice to meet you. Gary, so what do you do in your spare time? How often do you play? Well, I don't like golf. I like watching rugby. Sounds good. Okay, so let's do it again. This time we're going to change the role. So you're going to start us off with A, and I will play the role of B. All right, let's get started. You too. I'm Gary. What's your name? I'm interested in all kinds of sports, like golf. Not as often as I'd like. What about you? Me too. How about we watch the game on Saturday? All right, great. So don't forget to review what we've learned today, and also remember to do some practice and make sure that you try to use the things that we've learned. So when you meet somebody new, it's important to show interest by asking them questions and not just replying to their questions. So good luck out there, and I'll see you next time.